Welcome to Season 2 of the Generational Dental Wealth Show. Season 2 is all about increasing dental financial IQ. We do record these live in studio at Team Studios, so if you want to see the video format of this show, go ahead to Spotify or YouTube. Also, if you want to join the Generational Dental Wealth community, go ahead to teamfinancials.com/educate. Let's hop into it.
Before we hop into today's episode, we wanted to share that this is not legal or financial advice. The thoughts that we share here are our own, and these are for educational purposes only. Kingsley is my CPA. He gives me financial advice. Please seek or solicit the help of your team and your financial advisors for your financial future. Welcome back to the Generational Dental Wealth Show. My name is Dr. Jermaine Affetti.
My name is Kingsley Affetti, CPA.
We're back at it, ready to have some fun today. Before we hop into it though, man, give me an update. What's going on with you?
Yeah, man. So I've been just doing a little bit of traveling, after tax season. A lot of us CPAs are just trying to rest, recoup, and recover. So went down to the to Jamaica actually for a wedding out. That was an amazing time. We spent a few days out there. Went up to Utah for some CE. I love to travel during my continuing education just because I can kill two birds with one stone, man. So just doing a lot of traveling, trying to get my mind sharp and just learn new skills to, be a better professional. What about yourself, man?
For myself personally, man, probably the best thing trip I've taken is wife and I was able to surprise our parents with a trip to the Bahamas, man. So that was good, really good, man. Mom and dad haven't really had a chance to just the two of them go on a couple's vacation for themselves. So that was good. It's me able to see them rejuvenated, man. And they came back fired up, man. People need to go on vacations a little bit more often. You know what I mean? Like if you haven't taken your parents on a vacation, listen, I recommend you do it. Mom and dad have been fired up ever since they got back, and I just love to see it, man. I love to see it.
Nah, exactly. I think it gives you some time to really put some things in perspective and kind of step away, man.
So today we're going to be touching on the topic of why every doctor is not a millionaire.
Wow. Okay.
So believe it or not, every doctor has the capability of becoming a millionaire.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate reality that every doctor will not become a millionaire.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up the tax season and we're talking to our coaching clients, we're noticing some recurrent themes that exist amongst the different clients and returns. And it's very similar. People would think that, right, if you don't start with any student debt, you'll be quicker to hit $1 million. Or if you move into practice ownership, you'll be quicker to become a millionaire. And there are some truths to those things, right? Yeah. But there's actually a theme that we notice that is more correlated with individuals hitting their financial goals than anything else. It's not student debt, and it's not practice ownership, even though practice ownership is a huge one. But the biggest thing amongst them, bigger than them all, is extreme ownership. Yeah. What does extreme ownership mean to you?
Extreme ownership, man, is really doubling down on your highest producing asset, which in many cases, right, for many people might be their practice. And other people might be their W-2 job or their 1099 contract, but really doubling down, really seeing how can I maximize this vehicle that I've chosen to spend so much time going to dental school to perfect, making connections to perfect. And in my opinion, it's really getting extreme about that and saying, if I'm at, I don't know, a million of collections, how can I get to 1.5 next year? How can I get to 1.3 next year? It's really doubling down and say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on everything. Let me just get really good at this one thing that I'm doing.
That's really good, man.
Yeah.
When I think about extreme ownership, I think about taking responsibility about everything in your life, right?
Yeah.
It's owning every situation, regardless if you start with student debt or don't start with student debt. If you choose to be a practice owner, don't choose to be a practice owner. If you enjoy stocks or you enjoy real estate, whatever you choose to do, right? Making sure your body, mentally, that you're always in a good space to make sure you can do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Everything falls on you.
Yeah.
It's a book called Extreme Ownership, and it focuses on the ideology that everything falls on you. Yeah. The good things are your fault, and the bad things are your fault. Yeah. So when we're looking at individuals who are hitting their financial marks, it's really the individuals who take complete ownership of their situations.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they start at a better place or end at a better place. Really, the biggest thing that matters is, are they intentful, and do they have a plan, and are they executing that plan on where they want to get to?
Yeah, man. So you open this up saying that, not every doctor is a millionaire. So I just want to hop into just a few reasons on why that may be.
Okay.
And hop into a few reasons on how that probably could be, right? And kind of the progression. But before we hop into it, I think there's a lot of misconceptions in general, right? I mean, everybody goes on Reddit or everybody goes online to see what the salary is or what the latest salary in my area. And that's a really good indicator, but that's not even close to being the full picture. So even before we hop into kind of a few reasons on why that's not the case for every doctor, just want to kind of debunk what a millionaire even is, at least from an accounting perspective, as a CPA, right? A lot of people just focus on income, right? And in reality, the net worth equation is assets minus liabilities equals your net worth.
Okay.
Right. So we can't just focus on assets and in the cash that you're bringing in, right? The income you're bringing in. We can't just focus on the house that you have or the properties, right? We have to also focus on the liabilities, right? The loans, the things that you're obligated to pay in a future time, right? And whatever that difference is the net effect is your net worth, right? So there's a lot of different moving components, and I think if we hop into a few reasons on why that's not the case for many doctors, I think we can get a lot from this.
Okay. So we need to break it down even to a granular level, right?
Yeah.
Because like when some people think that if they have a house, they have necessarily an asset, right?
Yeah.
When somebody signs a mortgage for a house, they technically signing for an asset and a liability. Yeah. Is that correct? The asset being the house itself, but they're also signing up for a liability, which is the mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you say the assets minus the liabilities equals the net worth. Because technically you want to have more on the asset side than the liability side to have a higher net worth, right?
Yeah.
So that means we need to take it even to the beginning to figure out what exactly a net worth millionaire is.
Yeah.
And before we go too far down with this, I want to first make sure that everybody understands that finances is one component of wealth.
Yep.
The number one component of wealth, honestly, is health. It's health mentally, physically, spiritually, being aligned internally with who you decide you actually want to be, right?
Yeah.
That part is the most important component. Now, once we understand that as a foundational premises, that we got to make sure we're healthy, mentally, physically, spiritually. Yep. Now we can move to the next point of how do we become now to the financial component of health? How do we become more healthy financially to move to a point of wealth and eventually leave behind the generational dental wealth and live a generational dental wealth life, right?
Yeah.
So now as we hop into it, so Kings, if you can just briefly explain what just real quick, what exactly is the difference between being a net worth millionaire and having $1 million?
Yeah, so great question. And there's probably a million examples that I can give to kind of illustrate this. But just like I said earlier, right, you might have $1 million in your bank account. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are a millionaire, right? If you have outstanding mortgage, if you have an outstanding mortgage, if you have outstanding loan on your practice note, if you have credit card debt, right? If you have I don't know if I said student debt already, but in general, right? Like all of these different liabilities are what is going to need to be considered when we're talking about like your actual net worth, right? Because $1 million is great, right? But some people are in negative net worth, meaning they may have $1 million in their bank account, but they owe 1.5. So their net worth is negative 500.
But I think that's how most dental students start out though. I think most dental students start with a negative net worth, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in the hole, meaning that technically someone who has nothing, $0 net worth, technically has a higher net worth than a brand new dentist coming out of school who has a negative $300,000, $400,000 net worth, right?
Yep.
So for instance, right, just because you have $1 million in your account does not mean you're a millionaire, because guess what? I can sign a loan document and somebody can deposit $1 million in my account.
Yeah.
And just because I can show you $1 million on my phone doesn't mean I'm a millionaire, right?
Yeah.
I could have taken out that $1 million and now I have an equal liability for $1 million, so they equal out to be zero, right?
Yeah.
Having $1 million in your account and owing somebody $1 million equals $0.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because I know there's a lot of arguments. Is a car an asset? Is a house an asset? Is it a liability? I think it's, at least before we even hop into like the main thing, is defining what an asset and a liability is. As an accountant, as a CPA, in a very, very, basic term, an asset is something that puts money into your pocket over time. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket over time, right? So a car and a house may or may not be an asset, depending on what situation or how you're using that. It's not the specific vehicle that is the asset or liability. It's the purpose and what is it actually doing for you over time, right?
Good. That's really good. So if you can let's hop into it. What are top reasons why doctors don't become millionaires?
Yeah, great question. So I'll start here. Student debt. I'd love to have your take on it. Simply put, right, it says many dentists graduate with substantial student loan debt from dental school, which can take years or even decades to pay off. High debt payments can limit their ability to accumulate wealth quickly. What does that mean to you, man?
Man, student debt, I'm telling you, is one of the biggest crushers to your net worth. And it's not necessarily because somebody has $200,000-$300,000 in student debt. That number, the big number, doesn't mean as much as the monthly figure, right? Because when you have an obligation to pay $5,000 to $8,000 a month after taxes, that is a crushing blow to your net worth accumulation ability, right?
Yeah.
Because that $5,000, that $8,000 could have been in a different vehicle that could have been appreciating for 8 to 10% every single year. Instead, it's been coming out of your pocket every single month, right?
Yeah.
So understand that the big number is the big number. The goal is, how do we mitigate that monthly number to get that down to a responsible figure in which you can still build wealth while simultaneously handling your financial responsibilities. So I think sometimes we got to stop thinking about the big number more. And I know it's hard. It's hard. I mean, thinking to yourself, you owe somebody $400,000, $300,000, $200,000, $100,000. It's a lot to think about. But in reality, the only way we get out of this is first understanding that the most important number is not the big number, but the monthly number.
Yeah.
How do we mitigate that monthly number so you have enough excess income to be able to put into vehicles to continue to grow? So I think number one, just the psychology behind student debt is one of the key reasons why most doctors do not become millionaires.
Yeah. And kind of like I said, taking a financial perspective on it, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the principle that ends up crushing people, right? Because at the end of the day, right, for the most part, you're giving somebody back their money, but it's the interest piece, right? And the interest accumulation, because at the end of the day, you could be paying interest on a loan, but never paying down your loan, right? So something that you would have thought would have took you 5, 10, 15 years to pay off. And, I have clients that are paying it. I mean, they're 20 years into ownership and still haven't even really eaten substantially into the principal. And it's really bogged down on them because they're like, I'm making these payments every month, but the majority of it has went into interest, right? Interest is evaporative, right? Interest it just goes out the door, right? Versus principal bringing down the loan payment. So, I mean, I think you're on the right track with that, man.
People need to understand the difference between payments and progress. Not all payments make progress, right? Most payments just get you back to zero. We got to understand that zero sometimes is just a point we just need to get to, right? We need to find a way to get from that negative to zero. Every single month, you start with that negative number, meaning that interest that you owe. And then you got to pay that interest just to get back to zero. You don't start eating principal until you go above that zero number, meaning that if you have a $2,000 a month payment and $2,000 is just interest, you got to pay that $2,000 plus something just to even get into principal.
Yeah.
We're going to move on to the next one.
Next one here, why isn't every doctor a millionaire, is management skills, right? It says not all dentists have strong business management skills, effective practice management, including marketing, financial planning, effective operations, and all of those are crucial for maximizing profitability. So you're the dental practice owner. Why don't you take that off first?
Personally, I think management skills is one of the biggest reasons why. And number one, I'm going to be clear. Every doctor, dentist, it doesn't really matter what you do. You are a practice owner. You are the practice owner of yourself, right? You yourself have the ability to be a practice. So even if you don't necessarily own the practice and you're an associate, that's completely okay. But you got to understand, you have to take that extreme ownership because there's going to be auxiliary staff that you're responsible for to bring the best out of on a daily basis. And by you getting the best out of them, it's going to end up bringing the best out of you, which gives the best product to those that you are serving. Yeah. So if you're not taking that extreme ownership mindset and thinking like, well, this isn't my practice, so I'm gonna just come do my work and go home, you're not going to stay there very long. Because high achievers like to be around high achievers. Meaning, so the better we get with managing our skill set, managing the people around us, managing everything that's available to us, the better we're going to get into a cycle to now create better results. And your patients identify when you get along with your assistant.
Yeah.
They can identify when you get along with the front desk, right? So just understanding that you're in the business of people, and the sooner you get better at the business of people, the better off you'll be altogether.
Yeah, and think about it. I meet with so many doctors on a weekly basis, and the number one thing I've identified is at the end of the day, right? There's a huge top line, but there's not always a lot at the end, right? Meaning that sometimes you can't outproduce your management problems, right? Jen said it, one of our brothers said it so cleverly. He says, money does not solve money issues. And simply put, right, I look at profit and loss statements and balance sheets of practices every single day. And you'd be surprised, they may be collecting, I don't know, for the month, $100,000 for the month, but when it's all said and done, they're barely breaking even, right? They're barely, I mean, at the end of the day, they may be taking home a small amount compared to everything they're bringing in. So everything in between is called management, right? How do you manage the money that you made in your practice?
Yeah.
And like you've already said, whether that's an associate, whether, like I said, but in this case, as a practice owner, there's so many things you can do, but you have to be proactive about it, right? One thing we talked about is you're producing, but what are you collecting, right? Are you billing the right? Are you following up? Are you making sure these claims are correct, right? Are you making sure that you have costs that are reasonable, right? Are you just ordering any type of labs and supplies? Or are you doing your research to see how you can be cost effective there, right? Even with marketing, I've seen places where they're spending 20-30% of their collections on marketing. It's extremely too high. And honestly, if that's the case, then you have to figure out if the ROI, the return on investment, even makes sense. So all we're trying to say there is that the management is the most important piece, not just the income when it comes to just management skills for doctors.
For sure.
Yeah.
That rolls us right into our next one when it comes to investment decisions. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it says here the financial success of dentists or doctors can also depend on their personal financial decisions, such as investments, savings, lifestyle choices. It says poor financial decisions can impede wealth accumulation. And I'll go one more step and say personal finances are not that personal. You need a team. You need a team.
For sure.
Yeah.
And when it comes to investment decisions, it's good to understand, like, what are you interested in?
Yeah.
Because people think investing is choosing the best investment and you just got to be right one time to be good.
Yeah.
I heard from one of my favorite financial advisors is the fact that choosing an investment that you enjoy being in, because that's going to be an investment you'll stay longest in.
Yeah.
And the investment you stay longest in will be the best investment for you. So it doesn't matter if it's real estate, if it's stocks. It doesn't matter if you're investing in businesses, your private practice ownership. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're an associate and you really, really like a stock portfolio, choose something that you can stay in the longest, because what happens is if you're not comfortable with an investment strategy, right?
Yep.
When things go down and things get tight, you're going to be like, I'm pulling out.
Yep.
When things go down, it's not the time to pull out. It's the time to be able to analyze the situation and figure out, is this an opportunity for me to actually go deeper into, right?
Yep.
So when it comes to investing, the key of it is find investments that, number one, are producing, asset producing, income producing, but on top of that, something you can be comfortable with long term.
Yeah. And I think you broke it out so well. And I know we're going to talk so much more about it, but you said something about asset producing, right? Accumulating, like the asset value is going up, but then you say cash flow producing. And I think that's so important, especially with investments. And there's so many different, I mean, you can go paper assets, right? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. You can go physical assets, right? You know, physical goods or real estate. You can go, like you've already said, investing in practice ownership, so many different avenues, right, of investment. And this is a very broad conversation, but I love how you broke it down, that, each asset in our opinion should always be, number one, accumulating in value, meaning the bulk of it should be going up, but also it should be kicking you out a little dividend or some cash every now and then. So I think that's really important. Awesome. Number 4 here, right? Why isn't every doctor a millionaire? I really like this one because this isn't. Yeah, it says work-life balance, right? I laugh, I chuckle a little bit there. It says some doctors prioritize work-life balance over maximizing income. They may choose to work fewer hours or avoid certain high-stress procedures, which can limit their potential. So in general, right, they just don't have a great dynamic between their personal life, their business life, their professional life, et cetera. You want to talk to that?
Man, I love this one the best just because, just like investing what you can find and stay in the longest, you'll be the best at. It's the same thing with your work-life balance. The sooner you find a nice spot for your life, the longer you can enjoy and you can build a life that you want to live, right? So for instance, us here at Empire, we work 2.5 days a week. I mean, we come in, we knock out the work we need to knock out, and then we go home, right? Obviously, as a practice owner, there's a lot more responsibility that needs to be handled after hours. Yeah. But for instance, for us, we enjoy that work balance and still being able to hit all of the financial goals we have in mind. So it's important not only on the work side and financially, but physically, right? We're able to now have more days to be able to go to the gym and work out. We've changed our entire diet. My wife is a pescatarian, which makes me technically a pescatarian because I eat what she cooks, right? So just being able to make these different changes make me feel better physically, right? Spiritually. It's making sure mentally I'm always in tune with my creator. These are the kind of things that, like, when you find a good balance between them all, because understand that you were you before you became a doctor or a dentist, right? Yeah. And you're going to be you even after you stop practicing. Yeah. So the sooner you figure out how to make your life the best version of you, the better you'll be. So don't try to figure out how to make your life a better doctor, right? Find yourself how to become the better version of you, and you'll be able to enjoy a better life.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think you encompassed it all and hit it on the head, and it's really not a lot more to be said there, man. Yeah. So number 5,
you hop into it, man. You hop into it.
Taxes.
Our in-house CPA, man. Tell us about how taxes can crush somebody's goals of becoming a millionaire.
So tax strategy. So, man, at the end of the day, we all know doctors are high income earners. That does not mean that they're high take home pay on earners.
What does that mean?
It just means, right, the higher or the more income you make, the more you're taxed on that income, right? Different tax buckets. It's a progressive tax system that we have here in the US. So meaning that if you don't have a strategy for taxes are going to completely wreck you. We have a lot of clients in California. In California, I think the rate goes all the way up to about 12%, and the federal rate is about 37%. So that's about combined a 49% tax rate. And we're just talking income taxes. We're not talking any other type of tax. We're not talking about property tax. We're not talking about sales tax, anything. We're talking about literally the tax on your income can be up to about 50%. So it's a substantial thing to consider and to have a strategy and plan around, right? And what I've seen a lot of times is at the end of the day, like I said, so many people focus, like we said, to open this up, just on that top line. How much do I bring in? How much do I do this? But at the end of the day, they don't have a strategy for each level of these buckets, and taxes, in my opinion, is probably one of the more significant parts of this puzzle, man.
Man, that's good, man. I just know when we go to conferences and, people are sitting around and they're, discussing, hey, what percent of collections are you getting? What's your daily guarantee? Yeah. And, how much did you bring in last year? Everybody we think about the conversation from, like, how much did I make? Like, what was the big number, right?
Yeah.
I made 100,000. I made 200,000. I made $500,000. But the real question is, how much did you take home?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you might be a high producer, make $700,000, but you're talking about if you're in California and half of that's gone.
Yeah.
You made $350,000, my friend.
Yeah.
$350,000, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but it's when you live a life like you make $700,000, but you're really making half of that, you're going to make financial decisions that are not in alignment with your financial abilities. And I think that's one of the biggest things that crush us as doctors is we have to understand that the top number is not the same thing as the bottom. When I say top number, what you make total is not the same thing as the bottom number, which is what you take home. So once you find a healthy balance between what that means and you start implementing different strategies, and I think that's probably one of the best parts that I like, especially about our relationship. I get to make what I make, and then I can bring it to you and say, how do we make this thing work, right?
Yeah.
I still remember, what was it, last week we talked? We sat down and you showed me what my tax bill was going to be if we don't implement some strategies. And when I tell you that the tax bill itself was what an average dental associate makes coming out of school. Yeah. And that's the moment when I realized it's time. We need to kick this thing up to the next level. Yeah. So just being able to have that ability to be able to mitigate taxes in different ways, really, it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, man. And it's always a eye-opening kind of conversation because I speak with so many first-year dental practice owners when they come in and I'm doing their tax projection. I mean, they're brand new clients and we're saying $250,000, $300,000 just in taxes, and their eyes get big. And I'm like, well, first, let's be grateful for the fact that we're getting ahead of this, right? We're able to implement some strategies. But at the same time, yes, it is a big eye opener because you might have just left your associateship and this might have been your yearly salary. And now you're having to pay that in taxes. So in general, man, all 5 of these points is and this is not an exhaustive list, but a really good starting point of understanding why every doctor does not end up becoming a millionaire, and why there's so many misconceptions out there, man.
So as we said, as we begin, every doctor can become a millionaire. Unfortunately, not every doctor will become a millionaire. And I hope if you're on the other end listening to this, you join the elite club of becoming a millionaire and just becoming a great all around holistic person. If you know somebody who is on this same journey and they want to become a millionaire, share this with them. Man, this was a fun conversation.
Very fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on Generational Dental Wealth Show. We'll see you
sir.
next week.
Out.
Peace.
Yeah.
When your boss bless you, you gon' fish out.